Your voyage.
Howdy, and welcome to SpookyGroove. I'm Adam.
And I'm Liam.
This is a spooky podcast where we talk about music that stands the test of time. It is spooky season, spooky dooky times, as I like to call it sometimes. And we have a little bit of a spooky episode in store for you. Kind of, sort of. It's a little bit of a unique concept that we've come up with.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that, Liam, how's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm jumping between music festivals at the end of this season here, and fortunately got to see you and Dan right on the heels. I was in town for Austin City Limits.
That was awesome.
Had your you had to have a Britt Daniel sighting of some sort. It's not an Austin trip unless you've brushed up against Britt Daniel, I feel like, somewhere. And had some good brisket. And so, yeah, I got to see you guys. That was great. And
loved it.
Now I'm back home for a hot second before running off to Vegas, which I think by the time this posts up will be happening. Where
this coming weekend, right?
Yep. I'll be When We Were Young festival with all my emo pop punk bands that I I cried to and then tried to be in high school. So,
of course.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it for sure.
That lineup looks nuts. That looks like a crazy lineup, honestly.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, so they announced next year's to capitalize on the promotion and the buzz off of this one. It's the weird thing for me though is like I looked at next year's lineup and it is just as good to me, if not better, than this year's. But I also feel like there's no cards left in the deck after that. Like, there were names that ran through my head when this went viral months ago that this original festival is coming out, where I'm like, well, here's who's missing. And then when I looked at the lineup, I'm like, they got everybody. Like, there's maybe two bands, and I don't know if I'd even want to go see the two bands that I'm thinking of that aren't even listed on here. So, so this year's exciting. Next year's exciting. I don't know what happens.
Yeah, where do you go from here, kind of thing?
I don't. I feel like maybe they needed to measure it a little bit, but I'm sure they're making so much money that it doesn't really matter that much.
Right.
And the bands are capitalizing on it. There's a lot of new music from these bands, and so it does then make me excited for next year. I mean, Blink-182 released new music alongside the announcement that they'll be headlining in 2023. And it does make me look, and it makes me look at all the other bands listed for 2023 and think like this could be a catalyst to get new music from some of these bands who, a lot of these bands, I haven't seen or heard from in a decade, you know?
Yeah.
And suddenly they're getting back together, and maybe it's a one-off payday, and maybe they'll actually and maybe music comes after. Maybe they have a great time and music comes after. So, yeah, I'm excited to check that out.
Be awesome.
I hit a record store, and I snagged two things. I snagged Brett McKenzie's album, the half of Flight of the Conchords, which was just such an important like that hit at the exact right time for me, comedy wise.
Exactly.
It was so good. And he's gone on to write music for the Muppets and a bunch of other things. He won an Oscar, but he put out this album, non-comedy album, that's very yacht rocky, soft rock, Randy Newman-esque, and it's really good. So it's been a good vibe. Toss it on the turntable. And then I got into this band called Viagra Boys randomly. Like I don't even know how I came across them last year. I think someone had suggested another band to me, and then it was like similar artists, and I'm like, Viagra Boys, this sounds ridiculous. What is this? And I got hooked on their album from last year, and they put another one out this year, and it's just like off the wall, like garage rock, but with
nice.
But it's catchy enough where it doesn't put me off, like it's not so dissonant, but then like each song sounds so different from the other one. It's not just one note.
Oh, that's always
deal.
interesting. Mm-hmm.
And so I got pretty deep into it, and I started Googling around, and I found out they're from Sweden, which I was like, okay. Oh. And then I found out that like Howlin' Pele from the Hives has been producing them, and I'm like, okay, there we go. Yeah. So it's
there
like,
it is.
Yeah, there's certain things here where I'm like, all right, I'm getting a bigger picture. I don't think it's going to affect my fandom at all. Like I like the Hives, and I don't think it's going to twist my perspective on them yet, or anything like that. But it definitely, like, it's one of those things that falls into place. When we had talked Weezer at one point, there was a song that they did, I think it was on Hurley, or maybe it was on Everything Will Be All Right in the End. But I remember listening to it and liking it a lot. And then when you find out that he co-wrote it with the lead singer of The Darkness, you're like, of
that's
course
right.
He did. Like,
Justin Hawkins.
I'm like, of course this is him. Like, that totally makes sense. So it's a little bit more of that, which is fun.
So is it like a Turn Blue situation, like when Black Keys worked with Danger Mouse and it sounds totally different? Or is it more or less the same? It just has more of that like Hives punch to it.
It's got, you can definitely see that they're kind of like, it feels like they're the next iteration of that.
Gotcha.
It's like, it's the next, but it's an evolution for sure. It's the music that I'm listening to is nothing, I like the Hives. I'm not a deep cut guy, but it's nothing that I would have expected the Hives to do. There's some spoken wordy kind of things and weird clipping and stuff that just like every song you're like, I don't know what's going to happen next. What are you about to throw at me?
That's cool though.
But it's really, really cool. So definitely worth checking out Viagra Boys for sure.
Nice. Yeah,
terrible
I'm definitely
going to
check them out. Totally. Yeah. I mean, I was a huge Hives fan, so I'm definitely excited to check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
What about you?
I have been listening to a lot of the new Pixies album. Actually, that's kind of, other than like searching for some of the artists that we'll talk about in our main segment in a little bit here, most of what I've been listening to other than that is the new Pixies album. Just came out, I think, like last month. And I kind of knew it was coming, but it wasn't really on my radar at that point. And it's really good. It's a little bit spooky, so it's coming out at like the perfect time. It's got some really classic sounding Pixies stuff on it. So I think this is one that if you're kind of an older Pixies album fan, I think you'll really like it. A lot of approachable stuff too. It's just a really good rock album, and I'm really digging it quite a bit.
They're a weird band because you have to have that kind of, you had that blast of music so impactful when it first came out, and then they all went out off and did their own things for 10 years, 15 years, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden they've reformed and been very active. It's almost like the Smashing Pumpkins where it's like, I
was going to say the same thing. It's
like you kind of came to terms with the fact that maybe that's not a band anymore. And now they are, and it's not the same, but there's still great stuff coming out of it, right? Like, there's still a lot of value. It's just, it doesn't have all the same members and it doesn't sound
and why is it always the female bass player that gets replaced?
I mean, it's very similar, right? Yeah.
In both instances.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. But yeah, that's the kind of the only weird thing is like, man, this is great, but like, I mean, I love the Breeders. I love Kim Deal. It would be, I know there's probably just a lot of bad blood there, but she would definitely be making it better. That's for sure. I'll just say that. I'll just put it that way. Definitely not a Sleater-Kinney situation where a key member leaves and I'm completely done with the band because of how it went down.
No, man. Yeah.
But yeah, it does put a kind of a little bit of a dent in it, I think. At least for me. It might not for some people, which is fine. You know, enjoy it the way that you want to enjoy it, and some people might not care which members are on which album and whatever, and that's totally fine. Enjoy it, love it. It's music. It's supposed to make you feel good, or supposed to make you feel something. So let it do that.
I mean, I don't know why else you're listening to this podcast if music doesn't make you feel anything.
Try to figure out what makes other people tick.
Yeah.
You're right. So we've got, we didn't end up doing any kind of Halloween or Spooky Dooky episode last year. It just didn't, nothing felt right, and it didn't really turn out. Maybe part of it is because me, just personally, I'm not like huge into Halloween. Obviously I love doing the typical Halloween stuff with the kids, going to like the whatever carnival and doing pumpkins and dressing them up and stuff like that. But like, I could personally kind of take it or leave it.
Sure.
Nothing against the super Halloween people. We love those people. We need them. Yeah. And they're really fun people. It's just not me. So
yeah, I hear that.
This assignment that we'll talk about in a second was actually way more difficult for me than I thought. I don't even like scary movies. It's just not my thing.
Yeah,
like,
see, I love that.
I don't. There you go. So we got okay. So you'll need to tell me about that because, like we've firmly established, you're not.
I'm not
a
a
movie
film
guy.
person. Yeah, I'm not a movie guy. I'm not a TV guy.
Tell me about the spooky movie thing, though.
I don't know. It's like Stephen King is one of my favorite authors. I love a lot of Lovecraft and Poe. I do like feeling unsettled. I don't like the gore thing. You know, I don't do
I hate that.
Saw and Hostel. Like I watch some just to be like, what is this? And I'm like, nah, I'm not getting anything out of this, you know, other than like you've given me
nauseous.
the one note. Well, it's like that, that what choice are you going to make? You know, it's the gift of the Magi-ish kind of like, I have to choose one or the other, and neither choice is good.
And it's
so one note, No, for me, it's more the exploration of like how we're all coping with existence and death and whatever, as morbid as that sound. But hey, it's Halloween. Here we are.
Yeah.
It's almost an excuse to just like talk a little more openly about how scary all of that is, and
True.
like I'm always interested in writing or film or TV that is smartly engaging with how our minds wrap ourselves around morbid thoughts or thoughts that you can qualify as morbid. And I think that there's a lot of music that I also engage with. I feel like there's a lot of emo that's based around that, but there's a lot of music that I listen to that brushes up with those concepts as well, because it's a very personal, expressive way of creating art and communicating to people. And it's, you know, there's a lot of unique ideas that get bandied around when you're grasping with deep thoughts like that. And so I don't like candy. I don't eat candy.
Me either, actually.
I don't dress up. It's great, like as someone who has kids, like you're saying, it's great to see it through a kid's eye. Like same thing with like Christmas is such a different holiday for me now as a parent, you know, like, but there's still joy in it. It's just a different kind of joy. Yeah.
Christmas is still magical for me, at least. So
yeah.
But like, there's not quite the same excitement on how, like Halloween, you get so excited. You're going to go out at night. It's scary stuff. You're going to dress up like your favorite, whatever.
So much candy.
And exactly.
Yeah.
Scare
people. See your friends and run around and eventually put shaving cream on each other when you get older and just be really dumb. No, it's like a free pass to just run around like a dork at 12 years old. Yeah. Like you could just... so no, I'm not mad at that at all. And I, like I said, like I don't even decorate much for it. You know, we've got some skeletons and stuff out, but like there's a pumpkin, you know, I got mums. But I don't go too hard in the paint for it. I'll say like having a a young daughter does kind of impact how often I can engage with that sort of stuff. And I've put on some music, both just of the season, but also in anticipation of this conversation today, that she listened to, and she's digging it. She drew a picture of one of the musicians and like gave it to me today, and I'm like,
really?
This is absolutely amazing. It's so great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and she wants to. I don't know if there's any, like, aside from the list that we're about to go through, if there's any songs of the season or whatever that resonate for you. One for me that keeps coming up, and it had just came up again yesterday, is she wants to watch Thriller. And we've talked about it on this podcast before, and I'm like, I don't know if you're there yet. Like, there's a lot of zombies and werewolves, bro. Like, so I'm on the fence about it. Like, she and I had another conversation about it today, and she understands. She's like, is it too scary for me? And I said, I think it probably is. And so she's going to let me know. She's like, if she brings it up to me again, then maybe we'll watch it with the pause button and be like, you tell me when to stop.
Right, exactly.
Lights on, middle of the day.
Yes, exactly. That's important too.
Yeah.
Did you watch it as a kid? Like, do you remember seeing it for the first time?
That's the big question with all of this, right? Like, I swear I saw Jurassic Park in the movie theater, which would put me at 9 or 10 years old. You know, like,
it's possible.
I'm pretty sure I saw Thriller at 7 or 8. But
I know I did.
That's the thing, is I can't like use that as a gauge for anything now, because I think that I was exposed to a lot of other stuff. A buddy of mine at work is also like just a horror nut, and he was saying how he was like Nightmare on Elm Street was on in my house way too early in my life, and like maybe that's why he's into
that stuff. Yeah, see, that makes a lot of sense.
What it is,
because like I grew up in a very like Christian household, so there was no, like, it wasn't crazy strict or anything, like, but you know, I wasn't allowed to watch, there was no Nightmare on Elm Street, no Friday, none of that stuff. I wasn't even allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead, but so, or The Simpsons, but I did end up catching Night of the Living Dead at a friend's house when I was like 9, and I wouldn't necessarily say that it scarred me, but it was way beyond anything that I'd ever seen up to that point. And I was like, I just had this really weird feeling in the pit of my stomach the whole time. And then like halfway through, I was like, I think I'm supposed to go home now, and just like got up and left.
That's amazing.
So I feel like a lot of people have similar memories to that, though.
We had. It's funny you mentioned that. That's one of those gateway drugs. We had Night of the Living Dead on VHS. Like, my dad didn't hide it; it was there. Like, my mom would go around and say, "We're coming to get you, Barbara," and I'm like, "I don't know the reference. What are you talking about? Stop being creepy." And then we watched the movie. Like, I know we watched it very young. Also, my mom was is very into Hitchcock, which is like, that is right. I mean, it's horror adjacent often. So like, there was enough of The Birds and Psycho going on in the house where things were like, it was predestined that I was going to have some macabre openness in my brain of like, okay, this is normal. Like, nothing against
I feel like
this.
Between like Hitchcock and like maybe even like early David Lynch, it's like that was, I feel like this is not a film podcast, so someone's going to correct me. But I feel like that was the first like psychological kind of horror stuff.
Mainstream for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'll kind of go for that once in a while. But Thriller for me was, I think I was old enough that it wasn't like disturbing or scary or anything. But again, I was probably like not 8 or 9. I wasn't younger than that. 5 or 6 is probably too young. Yeah.
She's 7, and we did Hook. And she was able to cope with some of the thing. I mean, it's not as scary. There's no monsters, so to speak.
Mostly
but
silly.
like the Rufio thing, and there's some stuff like Hook can be kind of scary. The pirates are scary, so I'm gonna try Goonies. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try Goonies soon. And
Goonies
then
isn't bad. There's skeletons, but there's no like death or anything necessarily.
Well, there's that dead guy in the fridge with the ice cream.
Oh yeah, you're okay. I blocked that out. You're 100% right, and I've probably seen that within the last 3 years. So
yeah. And then he falls on Chunk, and Chunk screams, "It's a stiff."
Yep. It's a stiff.
Oh, it's
that's
so good,
awesome.
Though. Yeah,
I love that movie.
But are there any other for you? If you're not a horror movie guy, then I'm guessing like the Halloween theme or Texas Chainsaw Massacre themes, they don't really do anything for you, right?
No, this is going to be so funny, but and I had been thinking about this, so I have an answer, and it's kind of silly, but it works. So the only thing that I could think of, like, you know, if you were to put on some like Halloween music, like not, you know, haunted house sound effects, like actual music, what would you put on? And of course, like my stupid brain, the first thing that, well, obviously you have to put Monster Mash on that.
Yeah, right. Right,
but,
of course.
But then I was thinking, oh, you know what totally feels like Halloween music to me? That if I was like put in charge of being a DJ or putting together a playlist for a Halloween party, I'm putting Harry Belafonte all over that soundtrack or all over that playlist. Yeah. Because, you know, Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I was allowed to watch Beetlejuice.
What?
And yeah, I don't know, dude. Don't ask me.
That's so weird, man.
So like, you know, I probably saw Beetlejuice at 7 or 8 probably.
Yeah.
And like, obviously it was creepy, very creepy. There's like seances and like weird stuff and people with shrunken heads and just like all kinds of crazy, weird Tim Burton stuff going on. Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously there's I believe at least 2 like popular Harry Belafonte songs in, and that was my exposure to Harry Belafonte. And I love those songs. But of course now my brain associates those incredible Harry Belafonte songs with Tim Burton and and you know, Tim Burton creepiness.
Of course.
So that definitely is, I know it's not traditional what you would probably consider, but I think it fits. I think it's perfectly you know, if you did put on Harry Belafonte at a Halloween party, everybody would know what you're doing. They would get it.
I can't. Who thought it was a good idea? Because I kind of want to pat him on the back and also have a lot of questions. To give
it just works.
Well, but to give Tim Burton access to 6-year-old me in the form of a Beetlejuice cartoon series.
Oh, the cartoon. Yep.
That I was obsessed with, and then found out there was a movie later. But it was Tim Burton enough of a, like, when you go back and watch it, it's really twisted. Like, of course. It's in line with the movie pretty well. I mean, it's a kid's cartoon show. Right. But, like, it really feels like somebody let Tim Burton put brainworms in me. Like, and yes. I don't think my parents knew it was happening. Like, it was just like a French speaking skeleton and a tap dancing spider. And my parents were like, yeah, cool, whatever. And it's really like, hey, here's some creepy stuff, dude. You want to like smoke these cigarettes? Like, I don't know. Like, it's very, I don't know. There's something weird. It feels weird to look back on that show and be like, we were just okay with this.
Exactly.
This is something where if I was sitting on my couch and my kid was watching this, I'd be like,
no, turn
so
this
what
off.
Is this again? Like, what is this? Yeah.
I mean, you could probably say the same thing about Ren and Stimpy. So
for sure. Yeah.
But then, like, speaking of my kids, my older daughter, who's 11, just discovered that she is obsessed with Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, cool kids go through that phase.
Absolutely. And it's like, I always thought people, I guess you could go either way with it, but I always thought it was basically a Christmas movie. But you could definitely go either way with that. So, you know, I get to sit at the breakfast table and hear, this is Halloween with the pear. Like, you take a bite out of a pear and it looks like that character.
Oogie Boogie.
Yeah. See, I don't even know the names of the characters.
Yeah.
Because I didn't watch it. I hadn't even seen it until like my kids found it and started watching
Yeah.
it.
See, my sister got into it, and because she got into it, I thought it was lame and I didn't watch it.
Oh, of course. Of course. I think I think I was annoyed by all the people because like
The fandom.
it's one of those things where like if you're a Nightmare Before, like to this day there is a woman at my office who is, she's roughly the same age as me, has a family, has, multiple children and, is very professional. Her desk is wall to wall Jack Skellington and other Nightmare Before Christmas characters. Yeah. It's like walking into a Nightmare Before her desk area is like walking into a Nightmare Before Christmas museum. And I'm like, first of all, that kind of takes guts. Like,
sure.
Like,
yeah. Own
like
it.
this is my personality on display, but like, that's so crazy in like an office environment where most people have like their flair in their office or whatever is like maybe a few figurines, some artwork, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, but like decked out, like people that love Nightmare Before Christmas love Nightmare Before Christmas. And it's incredible.
I think, the characters are obviously super memorable, but like, I think it's also weird. We were just talking about Tim Burton with Beetlejuice. Like, there you have Tim Burton who has done Edward Scissorhands as well. Like he's got all of these Corpse Bride. Like there's so much where if you had told me that she had a desk and it was just burdened out, like, yeah, I get that, man. Like I've got Stephen King stuff all over my house, but like, and look, I'm nothing against the Nightmare Before Christmas thing. It's just like to be so doubled down on one thing. Like for me, I'm just like, that's like your favorite band. I guess your favorite band has one album. That's what you're going to live with, right? Like, I guess Nirvana fans are just sucking off the same 2.5 to 3 releases and like hoping for B-sides and demos and whatever, like, what are you going to do? I guess you just hope for
that one
a new reissue or something.
That's what gets it. I think that's what gets me the most is it's like I have like, I have like a little stormtrooper and I have some Lego figures and I have like some Nintendo like little toys and I've got like some Marvel like comic book cover art hanging up and stuff like that. But it's like a smattering of some of the media that I enjoy. But like it's just like little things here and there and it's from all over the place. This is wall to wall.
Amazing.
Just Nightmare Before Christmas posters,
all
figurines, year round.
Wow,
year round.
Wow.
So but again, God bless those people. We need those people.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we have prefaced all of this to get into our main event today.
We're gonna test something out.
We're gonna try it, and I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna go well. Yeah. And I don't think we'll get sued for calling it this, but we're going to build a band.
Yeah, we're going to build a band.
We're going to build a band.
Yeah.
And the basic premise is that it is our job to piece together a band of existing living musicians. And this particular build a band is of the spooky dooky variety.
Yeah.
So that's basically, the only other rule is we can't have like, if I have someone in my band, they can't be in your band.
That's right. Yeah, no, we can't double up. There's no doppelgangers. This is one existed universe. We're not creating a battle of the bands. I didn't view it like that.
No.
But I will say, so there's a...
No, they're going on tour together. They're not battling each other.
Yeah. Well, so I viewed it as so there's a movie called Idle Hands starring Seth Green, right? Mm-hmm. And they go to a Halloween dance in that. And the Offspring are actually the band that's playing at the Halloween dance. And so like I was picturing Halloween dance a la 2000s teen flick.
Oh,
And
nice.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
I'm like, okay, so who would I put together for like? It doesn't have to be like a high school dance or whatever, but who am I putting together
Right.
for an event like that, where people are going to a Halloween shindig, and this is what they're gonna
That's
go for.
great.
Yeah.
See, I love the way that you framed that because
Yeah,
I
just-
went in like a different direction altogether. I was more
we're
thinking
gonna have
like
different bands.
sonically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I love that you did that way.
Yeah. So, do you want to start? You want me to start? What are you thinking?
That's cool. I can start, and we're going to start with the rhythm section. So we'll
Yeah.
start with the
Backbone.
drummer, at the backbone,
Who you
the
choosing?
heartbeat of the band. And
This was tough for you. You said, right?
this was so like I had the rest of my band like very quickly. Like
Right.
we've been talking about this for a while, so it's been like I don't know, probably a week that we've been mulling this over individually
Yeah.
and trying to piece this together. I honestly didn't. I kind of ended up just within the past like 2 hours having a couple of really, really solid options. And then it was deciding between the two. And I didn't even nail down the last two until until that last one of the two, until I sat down and started to, log in and everything and get on the computer to start recording this. So with that said, this one I had to put the most thought into, and I don't know how much sense it'll make at first until the whole band kind of comes together.
I like
But
that.
I'm going with a gentleman by the name of John Theodore. Do you know who John Theodore is?
No.
John Theodore is the current drummer for Queens of the Stone Age,
Oh.
and former drummer, which I didn't even know that, like I knew he was the drummer of Queens of the Stone Age. He is the former drummer for the Mars Volta.
Ooh.
And so he was with Mars Volta and recorded the first 3 studio albums with Mars Volta. So like
D. Loust
incredible
and
drummer.
Francis. Wow. Okay.
Obviously just loud, bombastic, but very, very technical and able to stay in that groove when there's like a lot of other craziness going on, which is important, I think, for a spooky band where you might have some wild sounds and other things going on. So I chose him mostly for his work with Queens of the Stone Age because I really needed a strong backbone, to the point that I was almost like, screw it, we're having a drum machine. Like I'll get a producer and he'll like program the beats and that'll be the drummer for my band.
Dig it.
But
All right. That's
also
a good pick.
the recording technique that Queens of the Stone Age uses, and I may have mentioned this in passing on the show before, but they really isolate the drums. Like they'll go and record like just the drums without any cymbals, and then do another pass and record just the cymbals.
Okay.
And it gives the drums this very, I don't want to go as far as saying ghostly necessary, which would be a spooky term to use, but they sound very like isolated,
Okay.
which I think is what they're going for. But it's definitely a different and kind of a striking sound. I think it allows them to really like boost the kick and snare and, do what they want differently with the cymbals, or you can cut cymbals in and out of the mix if you want to. So it's really interesting technique, but I think it lends itself to a little bit more of an isolated kind of, I'm pushing the envelope. I'm trying to make it sound spooky, but it's more
good.
of just the effect of what it does in the headphones or on the
Queens of
on
the
the
Stone Age.
speakers.
Queens of the Stone Age has often got a menacing vibe to them.
Yeah,
like
they've got macabre themes.
There's a kind of it's not it's machismo, but it's not just that. Like that's too belittling of what it is. There's like this swagger, this persistence, this like undeniability to. I mean, Josh Homme is an imposing man. So like, there's something to that band that then requires that kind of core to drive it forward.
Exactly.
Like, you can't have a swagger without a beat, you know? Like, you need something there. And look, if Dave Grohl can do it, like, those are tough shoes to fill. I just looked him up. I didn't realize he's the guy who did, so Zach De La Rocha, in between doing anything random, Run the Jewels and Rage Against the Machine, has just been MIA, but he did put out this weird EP. It was really cool, called One Day as a Lion, I remember rushing out and getting when it came out, because you're just like starved from anything from this guy. Yeah. And it was a partnership with John Theodore and him, and I had no idea. I just knew Zach De La Rocha did this thing.
There you go.
But he's the other part of One Day as a Lion, so very cool. And apparently he's in Bright Eyes right now, and I love Bright Eyes, and I'm gonna hopefully see them this weekend. So that's very exciting too.
That surprised me too.
Dude, Bright Eyes gets bleak. Don't
Mars
even
Volta,
and
Queens of the Stone Age and Bright Eyes.
Yeah, I mean,
more sonically speaking. I know they get kind of dark, but
dude, like,
I just meant.
He has an album that opens up talking about a plane crash, and like it just like walking you through a plane crash. Like, it is, bleak. No, it's a good pick. Yeah.
About you?
I'm going to go a little old school with mine, and I'm also going to harken back to other conversations that we've had this season.
Yes.
I'm going to start off strong with Marky Ramone.
Yo,
so Marky Ramone, there's two reasons for this. I'll do a little foreshadowing that I had members of the Misfits in different positions throughout my genesis of building this band, and I kept ripping them out and replacing them with other people, and Marky kept coming up because of Pet Sematary in my head, because if you talk about like Halloween songs for me that I have to hear Pet Sematary, the song, at least in the movie and the book, but like Pet Sematary, the song, is a Christmas story for me. Like, I have to listen to it at least 10 times around Halloween. It's just a very, very fun, good song. It was their highest peaking like Billboard song ever for the band, which was like 15 years after the band had formed, and they had well gone past their peak. We're talking about the Ramones here, like they actually had a hit. Granted, it was because it was part of a very successful horror film, and like it played at the end of the horror film, so that helps. But no, we've seen, if you watch the music video, and it's fun, and it's got a lot of cool CBGB's throwbacks. Debbie Harry's in it.
Nice.
And the Dead Boys are in it. But we've seen Marky Ramone get buried before. Like the whole band gets lowered down throughout the video into a grave in Sleepy Hollow.
Nice.
And the song itself was written like in Bangor with Stephen King, basically. Like, they met up with Stephen. Nice. They went out to lunch. They hung out. He's a huge Ramones fan. So it like all kind of comes together for me here, right?
Very nice.
So he's a huge Ramones fan. He approached them. Dee Dee, who couldn't be included because he's dead. Although a dead band member in a Halloween list could have been very interesting.
There you go.
But it could have been fitting, but we're not going to go there.
If we do this next year, we'll get to add one zombie.
Yeah, or it's all zombies.
Or all zombies.
This year's all alive, next year's all dead.
That's too many options. Like, it's like, it was hard enough for me to do this with living people.
That's fair.
Maybe. We'll see.
But anyway, so all of that, I mean, so the Pet Sematary thing was like, he's my only living Ramone, so like he already kind of had my drum spot, and I was like, he played with, I mean, so Jerry Only is the only, so to speak, the consistent member of the Misfits over the years. Danzig left, Doyle left, but they came back together recently. Anyway, so Marky played and toured with the Misfits for 5 or 6 years. He didn't put out any music with them, but it felt like enough representation for me on my list to give a Misfits nod and to talk about how important they are, but also kind of tie it all together with Ramones and Pet Sematary. So Marky's going to be holding things down and back for us here. He's he's solid. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta have the backbone.
You got a bass player?
I do have a bass player.
Okay.
I don't know how much of this was influenced by what I've been listening to lately,
Okay.
but my bass player is Paz Lenchantin,
Okay.
the bass player currently for the Pixies. So obviously I've been hearing a lot of her very equal parts slinky, but also very much in the pocket bass playing.
Yeah.
Her like tone is very somehow both like very full sounding, but also kind of rattly at the same time. That's probably that Fender kind of thing, that Fender bass sound. But I just kind of like how the way that she really weaves very like slinky, snaky bass lines into what might normally be a very simple, four on the floor kind of rhythm. So I really think that her and John could do a lot of really cool things together as a rhythm section. She also, to tie in as much spookiness as I can glean from this, she also was, for the first couple of albums, the bass player for A Perfect Circle.
Yep.
And, I went back and forth with a lot of potential, Tool or Maynard James Keenan project musicians.
Yeah.
So that kind of ties that into it. And as we are, I'd be remiss if I did not mention that she was also in Zwan.
Yeah.
You have to mention Zwan if at all possible.
Which is interesting because Iha is in A Perfect Circle.
Yeah, I think he still is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But Iha's in everything and we love him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's also, I think, so he's in Iha's in everything.
Yeah.
He's still a Smashing Pumpkin.
He is.
Unless I'm mistaken, he's still A Perfect Circle. And he was in the supergroup
window.
He was a tinted window. I was going to say broken window. I was like, why did I go there? It's because it'd be spookier than a tinted window, I think. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Paz. I don't follow a ton of musicians on Instagram because a lot of it is just kind of like, it's not my thing, but I do follow her account. And I think it's really just her and David Pajo. I think like those are the only two musicians I follow other than like the Spoon account. But that's my rhythm section.
That's awesome. I dig it. So I feel like we've got a good kind of like dark indie rock trajectory with your band at the moment. I feel like for like with garage elements, I feel like it's going to be that grungy garage indie sonic thing I've got
trying
right
to
now.
get kind of like dirty and grungy and like rattly, but still like very powerful at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely what I'm going for. Okay, who you got? Because we got Marky Ramone on drums.
I got Marky Ramone on drums, so I'm gonna be staying a lot in the punk lane. That's great. I'm picturing people all in the same space. I did realize that part of my supergroup, my Build-A-Band, already exists.
Nice.
As we were just about to hit record, I was looking something over, and I'm like, right, he was a part of this other thing, and they actually played together. So we'll get there.
Nice.
But so this my bass player is just known as Hunter. Like his last name is out there, but they don't ever list his last name in any of it. He's the long-standing bass player for AFI.
Oh, okay.
So AFI's has had an interesting trajectory where, like,
yeah,
we go back to our Bay punk conversation way back when, and they came out of that scene, and the first 2 to 3 albums are very much what you would expect. They had this song called I Want a Mohawk and My Mom Won't Let Me Get One. It's just like NyQuil and Cereal Wars and stuff. It was very much that kind of East Bay hardcore punk. And they kind of transitioned. I don't find out about them until I'm in high school and I'm feeling real emo. And I've got there's 2 plugs. One of them is my buddy Vinny, who's passing CDs around to people, and another one is this girl Aisha, who's passing burned CDs around. And this like creepy looking Cemetery CD gets passed to me by a friend, and I'm like, what is this? And it starts off with this kind of storm sounding, but with some crashing punk rock guitars, and then it's all instrumental for the first minute, and the second track comes in and it's just this like bass line. It's like and it's like, it makes me think of the Halloween movie and the scary movies that I've seen, like that I saw way too young, and I'm like, what is happening here, right? And this whole album unfolds in front of me. It's called The Art of Drowning. Man, I fell in love with that freaking band. Like, holy crow.
That third wave emo hits pretty hard. I can't blame anybody.
Did. Like, I was so already open to the punk and pop punk thing, and then to have that sort of dark romanticism kind of goth leaning thing come out of it. So Hunter joins the band like as they're transitioning, basically. Like, he comes on around album 3, and then immediately after that they take on what then everybody will come to know as their sound from Girls Not Grey. They had some big MTV hits when they signed to a major label in like 03, 04. I mean, this band was like touring, like headlining stadiums. Like, this was a huge band, and there's, still same lineup, still in the pocket. They put out an album every 3 to 4 years consistently, and there's really great stuff they still put out. The only difference is, and this is who the lead singer of this band, who's not on my list, he's fantastic. I told you beforehand that like I've been listening to some music with my daughter, and I showed her some music videos from 2005, 2006 when this band was at its like MTV heyday. And like the black hair down in his face with the lip ring and the mascara and all these outfits and stuff like this. I mean, my daughter is just, she's like enthralled. She's like, she thinks it's the coolest thing. She's like drawing pictures of him now because it's just such a unique looking thing. And so what's funny is like, I've gotten to know him over the years. I showed her a picture of him from like 2 or 3 years ago where he's just a guy, he's got stubble like me, and he's got regular hair or whatever. I mean, the band has kind of transitioned to almost like a new wavy influenced band that still has these gothic tones to it. It's still a punk band, it's still a little goth, but like, he's more Cure than he was before, or Depeche Mode, maybe a little bit more. Very much like kind of graduated onto that. And so she, now for her, the dissonance doesn't, like, she's like, that's the same person as this baby Havoc who's on there. But anyway, so the energy of that band and what they did and like what they opened my mind up to, they had to be represented somewhere here. And Hunter always was just this like understated but like solid guy, and he does this thing which is, I'm like, it can't be real, but he like he punches his bass sometimes, like he's like playing and he's like punching the bass, but I'm watching it in some of the live performances and I'm like, it seems like he's actually using that to make noise. Like, can you punch a bass guitar and actually make it make the noise? When
you say punch, do you mean like the strings or just the body of the instrument?
I don't know.
Because
like if you punch the strings, it wouldn't work, but maybe
it would sound very like Fieldy from Korn, like very slappy. I would, or like Les Claypool if you like punched the strings.
Yeah,
but if you like hit the body, it's more of like a dull
Yeah.
sound.
Okay.
It would sound very kind of like ghostly. I'm going to say
maybe that's what he's
ghostly as
doing.
many times as I possibly can
Yeah.
this episode.
We got to get extra spooky.
But it's like,
yeah.
because you're not plucking the strings, but just like the vibration of you like hitting the wooden body of the instrument will get picked up by the electronic pickups. So it's definitely going to do something. I don't know how you use that musically, but
think
that's
it's just
interesting.
I think for me at age of 18 or 19 or whatever, I was
It just
like,
looks cool.
yeah, it's so cool. It's like that guy is so rad that he's punching his bass, you know? But like, look, that's not that different than I just got to see Tom Morello play his guitar with his teeth, you know?
Yeah.
And like, okay, it's like, it's all that's more impressive than punching your bass. Like punching your bass, you're just angsty, but like it's still like you're trying something different. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if it sounds cool too, that's added bonus.
Now we kind of agreed on this that we would rein things in because we have. Yeah, we all like bands that have 6, 7, 8 members. We're not talking about the polyphonic spree of Halloween here.
No.
We agreed that we would rein ourselves in here to, I think, 5 max, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go with 5?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a 5-piece. All right. So now you kind of get into, we have our rhythm section down. Do you go keys guitar? Do you have 2 guitars? Are we bringing in a keytar? Are we doing a didgeridoo? Like, where are we going in your...
There is nothing spooky about the didgeridoo.
That's what you think.
I used to have one, actually. I tried to learn how to play it. I'm not joking. I bought one, and I tried to learn the circular breathing thing, and it just did not happen. I have a really bad history. I have a weird history with trying weird instruments.
Like a theremin. You should get a theremin.
I would love a theremin.
You
that
can make
would
a
be
spooky
amazing. I can't think of, other than maybe like an old creepy church organ, I can't think of a creepier sounding instrument than a theremin. It's very ghostly.
Yeah, no theremins in my band, though.
No theremins in my band. I did go more traditional, and I have a guitar player, and I also have a keys player.
Okay, good.
So
great. Where do you want to go? You choose.
I'm gonna go with the guitar player first.
Okay.
Because the keyboard player in my band is a little bit more well-known, higher profile.
Got it.
But actually, the guitar
Elton John.
player was a little Elton John, of course, the spookiest man alive.
Guy, yeah.
So I really wanted a super dark and aggressive guitar sound. So this was a little bit of a interesting decision for me because, as my listening habits and my personality, I was definitely more, as you've heard so far, definitely more apt to go like the indie route.
Yes.
So I had to try to marry things together that probably wouldn't normally work, but I ended up landing on Steph Carpenter, who is the guitar player for the Deftones.
Oh, man, Deftones is such a good call. I didn't even think of Deftones.
I love Deftones.
Yeah.
I've been a fan since the first album. They're kind of in. This is probably a bad take, but I feel like they're the only band that kind of grew out of and survived the nu metal thing.
Yeah.
You could probably argue a couple others.
Linkin Park did pretty good out of it. I feel like, obviously we've lost Chester at this point, but I think Linkin Park overcame a lot of that stuff with some of their later things. But no, I think Deftones for sure, especially when you're talking about like through the 90s. Linkin Park was after them. Linkin Park was influenced by Deftones. So, yeah.
I just love I love their most recent album. I was listening to it recently. I didn't initially want to go with someone that does do like the 7-string, 8-string guitar thing, but it just works so well. And I've been known to detune my 6-string guitars at certain points to try to mimic the sound and just to be able to play some songs that I want to.
Awesome.
So it ended up working, and I do think it works well. with the rhythm section that I do have. He's also a pretty versatile guitar player. It just, I don't think it comes out very much, just with the style that the Deftones have going on. But he does some really cool and unique things. And I think that it would work really well with the rhythm section that I have. And you know, it's Deftones. There's some spooky and macabre stuff that they, can get into sometimes. I didn't want to go straight up like metal because I felt like that was too easy. And it's also not really a genre that I listen to all that much. So it just fit. I think the more I thought about it, the more it really worked in my head, at least. So that's who I'm going with on guitar.
I mean, I remember, again, my MTV days, like that song Change, like what White Pony.
Oh yeah.
White Pony is a great album, and that is an unsettling song. Like,
oh yes.
That's one of those things where I distinctly remember watching that video, listening to that song, and being like, I don't know what's happening right now. What like, I don't know what this is. Yeah, no, that's a great. I didn't even think of the Deftones. Like that is such a good call. Wow.
Have you seen the music video for? I want to say it's Ceremony off the new album, the newer album.
No,
it's almost kind of like a psychological horror movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's like this girl. She's kind of working her way through these various rooms, and it's like she's getting like deeper and darker into like the belly of the beast, and then she gets to this long like creepy hallway, and she sees people coming back from the hallway that are like, you know, going the opposite direction that she's trying to get to, where these people have already been, and these people are emotionally destroyed. Like they are inconsolable, like scream crying, and it's really unsettling. I don't want to spoil any endings or anything, but it's like, it's straight up like they turned a music video into a psychological horror movie, and I love it. And I don't even, you know, I don't even think I've seen it all that recently, but it's one of those videos that, man, it like really stuck with me. Yeah. It's also a cool video because there's a lot of little like visual things in the video that reference prior Deftones songs, like the names of songs and things like that. So it's really cool. I highly recommend it. And I don't recommend music videos all that often on this podcast, but here we go. That's my guitar player.
So my rhythm guitar. So I have a lead guitarist and a rhythm guitarist.
There you go. So no keys in your band.
No keys in my band.
No problem.
Yeah, Billy Joel's going to sit this one out. So I went with Matt Skiba of Alkaline Trio. Alkaline Trio is such another like super important band to me that I didn't get the same kind of like indoctrination from a friend. I discovered them through MTV. They had this music video, which I just did. I also showed to my kid. I don't know what I'm doing. Where it's just like this family wakes up in the middle of the night and the radio turns on and they can't turn the radio off, and there's ghosts popping around the house, and the ghosts are the band members, and like,
oh my gosh,
the son gets possessed and he goes down to the basement and he breaks open the basement floor and it exposes the bodies of the band members. And I just remember watching this and I'm like, the music video is so cool and so twisted, and the song was just this like punk anthem. I'm like with little hinted twists. And so I remember going out and buying the album. The album is called Good Morning, Mourning. And it was such a perfect kind of, it's not tongue in cheek, but it is all these like little hand tips of like really well written, punk songs, pop punk songs, with these kind of little things in there that get at you about like blue in the face and I'm coughing and I'm like, there's like your coughing or mine kind of thing. Where it's just like, I don't know, it almost could have seemed cliched, but it's done in such a crafty way that that it always landed. And it also has, and I see this with Blink-182, and I've loved this about Alkaline Trio. It has two solid songwriters and singers in the band, and you have Matt, who's the guitarist and the lead singer in most songs, and his songs, and he's it's the reason why I chose him for this as opposed to Dan, who's the bass player, because Matt leans more into the macabre, like bold-faced, just like he reads twisted things and he puts them in his songs. But he shares singing and writing responsibilities. And so when you go through the album, you'll jump back and forth from a Dan to a Matt song, and they sonically are different. And Dan's songs are like kind of more socially sad and wistful and have these kind of odd, like, open-ended questions and with bleak landscapes painted for you, but it's not like I bled on the sheets, it's like like, I was lost in the woods and I found your face or something like. And yeah, it's so but what I didn't realize, so that Matt has had some side projects. He obviously was in Blink-182 for the past two albums,
right?
But he has a band called Matt Skiba and the Secrets. And I just like figured it was him and a bunch of people. And so like, as I was looking stuff over here, I'm like, okay, yeah, Matt, and he did that thing, and Hunter was on bass, and I'm like, Hunter is on bass.
Oh, dang.
So now I have to go, he's got two whole albums and I've got them, and I have to go back here just to listen through. And apparently the drummer in this group is the drummer from My Chemical Romance, who aren't on my list at all. They probably should be, although I'm not a big My Chemical Romance fan, so I'm not too sad about it. But this is like a supergroup that I didn't even know was a supergroup. I thought it was just a solo project, and it's like it's pretty weird. So anyway, so Matt, I mean, we're gonna get into front people, like lead people who like that's gonna be the biggest thing here. But for me, like, I can't go through Halloween season without AFI and Alkaline Trio, and I carry them with me all year long. I listen to both these bands. Yeah, I've listened to them since high school, and I still love them. They're both playing When We Were Young Fest. I cannot wait to see them.
There it is.
So I'm like, these lists had to have. My band had to have representation from both of those bands, of course, which kind of leaves the rest of this open to some other stuff for me down the road.
Very nice.
All right, so we're not at the lead yet, though. So you've got one more. A key player?
Yes, I did end up, and I kind of went back and forth with this idea, but I really, again, the more that I thought about it, the more it works in my brain. And I don't know if that's just the more you think about a bad idea, it's just fine all of a sudden, or if there's something there. But so my keyboard / backup vocalist is none other than Trent Reznor.
Wow.
So
good call.
I also felt like I wanted to make sure to have somebody in there that could produce. Yeah. Because, like, I'm into producers, and we just talked about a producer in our last episode, and
yeah, you just have to bring it all together.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've never really considered myself to be that big of a Nine Inch Nails fan. There are definitely songs here and there that I really, really enjoy, and obviously I have a tremendous amount of respect for Trent Reznor as a musician and for everything that he's done. But I wasn't like going out and buying Nine Inch Nails albums and like poring over them and stuff like that. Yeah. I was more of a casual fan, but I think in the like realm of being a, first of all, a really creative, synth player, and obviously can play very well. Obviously on the spooky side of things, for sure. Definitely on the dark side of the lyrical content there. But I just think it would be really cool and interesting to see him in a keyboard and backup vocals role again. which I don't think we've really seen since like pre Nine Inch Nails when he was in that weird like 80s pop band, that like kind of new wave band, which the name is escaping me now. But yeah, and I think that he works really well as a backup vocal for my lead vocalist. And people are probably like, who's you don't have him as your lead vocalist? What's wrong with you? But I think it's going to work. I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think he would work well, like with the rhythm section and with Steph on guitars. So I am standing by my decision with Trent Reznor as my keyboard player.
Yeah, I think he can be in support of stuff pretty. I mean, he works with so many different artists. That
Yes,
I feel like,
he works well with others, it would seem, or at least certain people. And I feel like he would be in good company. Like I feel like he would not have a problem working with most of these people, with the possible exception of my lead singer. But that tension can sometimes create some amazing music.
Yeah.
Like you see that a lot, like people that hate each other making just incredible music together because that tension creates things. Yeah. So, and you can't like fake that. Like if you're like kind of almost forced to work with somebody and you just have such seething hatred for them and you're stuck in a little room together and you've got to create with this person, it creates some very unique situations and unique songs. So I think that I don't know for sure if that would happen. They're probably all just wonderful, fine people that would get along just fine. But I'd like to imagine that there's some kind of tension there. I'm just going to put it there in my mind.
I like it.
Leave it alone.
Again, like painting the picture for my punk rock dance party. Like I like this fleshing out of all. It's like we're setting scenes here. It feels good.
Exactly.
We are building a band.
Yeah.
All right. So I went with a lead guitarist. So because the core of my group, and it's going to carry over to my lead as well, is very chuggy punk, like. And you can be dynamic there. I think my bass player is actually can be very dynamic with his playing. He does some really great stuff. But I needed somebody who could shred, Like I really needed somebody who could kind of fill in the spots where it needed to be. And my pick has, I think I want to say he's like 40, and maybe not even. He's got to be like 38, 39. No, he's 41. Apparently, he's listed as one of the top 10 like hard rock or rock guitarists.
Oh wow!
Like currently, by a bunch of Guitar World and whatnot. At least metal guitarists. So I'm talking about Sinister Gates, and Sinister Gates is the guitar player from Avenged Sevenfold.
Right.
So Avenged Sevenfold is awesome. They're Guns N' Roses and Metallica and Soundgarden all wrapped up into this package of bat wings and skulls and biblical references. They're such a unique band where like the first two albums were like this like real like metalcore screaming kind of right over the plate, but really good. And then they found this like elevated sound beyond that. I would say some people would critique it. I think a lot of people got upset when he stopped screaming and really started singing at higher registers. And he trained with the same vocal coach that the M Shadows did, that Axl Rose and Chris Cornell trained with. He is of that ilk and is of that caliber. And he's only he stands next to his guitar player Sinister as like these two are just monumental kind of pillars in that space. Not the goth heavy stuff that I've kind of prefaced all of my other band members with. So I think that he would kind of stand out from the sort of punk core of all of this as the similarly tattooed and pierced, but in a different way, maybe than the rest of the crew. But he's so cool. He's got this amazing swagger, and they lived that kind of Motley Crue-esque lifestyle in the early 2000s. There were a bunch of, I mean, their drummer died of an overdose, and another band member almost died off of. I mean, they lived hard, man. Like these guys ran through it, and so what came out of that is this like deeply emotional metal music that I think can often rival what Metallica is able to produce after they have had their losses and had their struggles and stuff. And this is a bunch of guys who are fairly young still. The only bummer is like we don't really hear a lot of music from them anymore. Like there's always talks about stuff. They did a very prog rock leaning album, like a concept album back in 2016, and then there hasn't been anything else. It's been 6 years. So the gap is it's pretty rough, but everything before that is so great. I think he'll bring a really cool dynamic to round out my lead singer, who's gonna burn the stage down. So yeah, I need somebody to balance it.
It kind of sounds almost like a similar pick to my my guitar player, which is kind of bringing a bit more of a slight metal edge to the backbone of the band.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I like that. I think so. I was on the right track. That's awesome.
Yeah,
great.
For sure.
Okay. So finale for me. This one I ended up coming to quite early. Okay. And then tried very hard to build a band around her that was unlike the band that she's known for. So my number one, like we're doing a top five. My lead singer is none other than
the stage.
Shirley Manson.
Yes.
Of Garbage.
That's awesome.
So I was like, okay, because I don't remember that far back when we did talk about Garbage what your first introduction was, but my first introduction to Shirley Manson and Garbage was the Queer music video.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how cool and creepy and sexy was that? And scary at the same time. So that's kind of where my mind went. I was like, okay, I knew at some point I wanted a female vocalist, and like, okay, kind of creepy, spooky. Okay. And then like my brain just went back to that, like seeing that music video for the first time. And like, it was like, okay, obviously this is my lead singer. This is my choice. So,
her with Trent Reznor also is so interesting to me.
There's something there. There's something about it.
Wow. I kind of really want that to exist. Especially because she's just so like open. Like she always has been, but even now she's just got two middle fingers in the air.
Exactly.
Like I feel like, man, yeah, that's really cool.
And she's always been that way. She's had those middle fingers up from day one.
Yeah.
And so I think Trent could identify and appreciate that. I think they could find a pocket where their voices work really well together. And after that, I just kind of, once I had Shirley and Trent, I was like, okay, I need to build behind them. And it will never happen. But yeah, I really want to hear what that sounds like. I I didn't come up with a name for my band. Did you name your band?
No, I didn't.
No, okay. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, I'm not going to go there.
No.
But that's my band that I built.
All right. So
All right.
mine is fairly predictable, and I'll say so. I thought about Alice Cooper because Alice Cooper is Alice Cooper.
Of course.
You think about Ozzy Osbourne because he's Ozzy Osbourne.
Of course. And
I
somehow
actually-
he's still alive.
Yeah, right. I thought there was someone who I almost did what you're talking about with Shirley, where I'm like, maybe I go with this person and build around them, which would have then been a wholly different band. But again, because I knew I needed Alkaline Trio and AFI in my group, I had to then kind of go from there. But I did think about starting with Nick Cave, and then kind of building like that kind of like spooky bleakness, that like I don't know, Cormac McCarthy-esque kind of like
Yeah, I could see that.
darkness. But instead, I just went fully bombastic and I went with Rob Zombie because Rob Zombie is evil. No, so like again, and you could go with Marilyn Manson too, but I like Manson's fine. Like he did what he did. I like some of his music. It never resonated with me.
No, it never resonated with me at all.
Manson's thing was to push boundaries, and I can respect that, and it was to make you ask questions, and I can respect that, and it was also to make you feel uncomfortable, but it was never in a relatable way. It was always like it was always just foreign to me. Like there's like a twistedness that I can't connect to. Rob Zombie is weird because there is that rockabilly Americana sort of like, I mean, he was raised in a carnival.
Exactly.
Like he was like, it is that sideshow kind of thing where I'm like, this is salt of the earth. Like I know where this
100%.
is coming from, and that kind of sensationalism is so good. I mean, he's worked with Ozzy, he's worked with Alice, but the main reason obviously he did House of a Thousand Corpses, the Halloween remakes. Like he's a prestigious filmmaker. I mean, the Munsters, right? I haven't seen it yet. I want to, but like he's a prestigious horror and dark filmmaker in and of his own right now, beyond the music. But the main thing, and kind of goes back to what you were saying about Trent, like he's a curator. Like the guy has a vision consistently, and he sticks to it. And so even if you go and listen to some of his albums, the new album that he put out is the Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy, which is like that sounds like a Primus album, you know? It's like what even is this? And all the album titles are 18th century excitable Morlocks, or like the eternal struggles of the Howling Man. And when you turn on these songs or you go through this album, there's these little like sound clips and this static and this thing that happens. It's so much more than just a song about a thing. Right. And
there's a whole concept to it.
Well, we talk about sonic landscapes, and I'm like, this guy is so set in his vision of every single thing that he's doing that each of this is this kind of, you know, sex-infused horror rock with this Americana bloodline that he is just going to tell you stories and take you on these trips.
Right.
And it's so easy for me to just throw it on and go with it. I've never seen him live, but he's definitely someone that I feel like I need to see live. I don't know if I belong there, you know, like I definitely am going to have like,
that's probably the thing is nobody belongs there. It's a sideshow.
Like I feel like I felt that mildly at Lamb of God, where I'm like, this isn't me, but like I can be like, this is great. Like everyone was accepting, like it was very cool, but it did definitely make me feel like there's something that I'm not a part of here. I think Rob Zombie, I would know the songs and be into it, but I feel like he's just doing his thing, and you're either there or you're not. And you like, he's like, yeah, you can buy a ticket if you want. I don't care. Like,
right. He does have that attitude.
The show or no? Yeah. I had this great moment where, I just as a fun, weird little anecdote, because I think you'll appreciate this. I have a guy I know who is so into Rob Zombie that he got his autograph tattooed on him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But he also did a thing where he met Rob Zombie and took a picture, right? And then he got the picture printed, and the next time he met Rob Zombie, he got the picture autographed, right? Right? But dude, this is the best part.
He got a picture of himself with Rob Zombie autographed by Rob
So that's and like, dude, this goes one step beyond that, right? So he hands him the picture. Rob's like, "Oh yeah, cool, man." He signs it, and then he goes and he says, "Okay, can I get another picture?" And they're standing there next to each other, and I'm standing there, dude. I'm first person witness to this. I'm standing there for this, and Rob's like, "I mean, is this really going to be any different from the other picture?" Like, he says it to him, and like the guy afterwards, he takes it with aplomb, but he's so crestfallen because he can't. Like, you can't argue that. You just had him sign the picture of you, and he's like, I mean, why are we doing this again? Like,
I thought you were going to say... Right,
yeah,
exactly
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he was going to take a picture with Rob Zombie holding up the picture of him and Rob Zombie that was just autographed.
I don't think he did that. Yeah, I don't think he did that.
Rob Zombie autograph photoception.
But I can never forget him hearing him say, "Well, is this going to be any different than the other picture?" Right. And I was like, he's so right. Like, oh, it just hurts. But again, so he's just like, I'm doing the thing.
But he's not an asshole about it.
He's not an asshole about it, but he's also like he's not the polished guy who's just going to be like, "Yeah, sure, man, whatever." He's just like, really,
just
dude?
Very down to earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I like what you said. I do appreciate his, like, I'm not like personally a fan, but you can see the thread of consistency between like the White Zombie albums and the solo stuff and the movies and just the whole aesthetic. Like, it all connects, and it's all very consistent in its tone and aesthetic, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. He's got, and it's why he's so interesting and pushes the boundaries and comes up with like unique takes on things in the film space. Like he's not just rehashing. Like he did remake Halloween, but he changed everything about Halloween for the better in many ways. So yeah, like the guy's got a vision, and I feel like he would bring my band together. Like, he would provide the vision, and everybody else would just kind of like fall into the pocket and go with it.
Yeah.
I will say, so my buddy Vinny, I tossed him this note when I was kind of coming up with this, and I was like, "Hey, here's my band, but you like this kind of music." And he was the guy who exposed me to AFI back in the day, and I was like, What's your list? And I feel like maybe we should throw this out there in our community
for sure.
Too,
that's so fun.
And be like, anybody want to build a band or even pick a front man or whatever.
Heck yeah.
So he went with Alice Cooper for his lead singer. He picked Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein from the Misfits for guitar.
Misfits, yeah.
But then he picked Gene Simmons, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't even think of Kiss. Kiss didn't even strike me in this conversation, but
it works.
It kind of fits, especially with all the makeup and the pageantry and everything.
Yeah.
He picked John 5 from Rob Zombie's band for lead guitar, and then he picked Jay Weinberg for drums, Max Weinberg's son, who is the drummer for Slipknot. As crazy as that is.
Wait.
Max Weinberg from the E Street Band.
No.
His son is the drummer in Slipknot.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Wait,
isn't that crazy?
what the heck?
Yeah.
How did that happen that way? So he didn't like grow up with them and like in Iowa and
No. He came in later because he also played with he played with Against Me. He played with Madball. He's bounced around a bunch. Yeah.
That's so funny. I had no idea.
But yeah, so Max Weinberg's kid, Jay, and he's a really good drummer. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, so good pick for sure. Yeah, he's
That's
been with
cool.
them.
I
I'm
like
looking.
that.
He's been with them since 2014. So
Man.
almost 10 years.
That's
He also asked me why I didn't put Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit in my band, which, you know, I mean, face paint aside, I don't think he needed to be in there, but
yeah.
Wes is cool.
Yeah, I did actually think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But like his very like rhythmic, almost like he's got a style that's almost like a dark nu metal version on guitar of almost the way that like Les Claypool plays the bass. He's like very percussive.
Yes.
And I think that comes from I seem to remember hearing at one point that he was or striving to be a drummer before he started playing guitar. So he's just got a very percussive way of playing, and that just didn't really fit my sound that I already had kind of going.
Yeah.
It definitely works, you know, love him or hate him, it works for the nu metal rap rock thing.
Yeah, he had that Blacklight Burns group, which was actually pretty interesting. I mean, he's an experimenter. He's actually like he gets lumped in with the Limp Bizkit,
right,
and all that goes with it, and all the nookie. But like, you know, he's a talented guitar player who's pushes boundaries, and again, he's like masks and body paint, and all these
the
kind of
crazy
things.
visuals.
Like, yeah, so I can't be mad about that. You know, he's a talented guitarist.
That's not a bad. Did you have any like runners up that were like really, really close? That
I mean, I kept trying
you had a
to
hard
throw,
time.
Yeah, I kept trying to throw Danzig in there. Like there was a part of me that like I was like Danzig belongs in this group, but I don't know, man.
It's a little on the nose.
I mean, but so is Rob Zombie. I just feel like Danzig is. I don't know. I mean, Davey Havoc from AFI could have been my front person too.
True.
I feel like I didn't need to represent AFI beyond one member. I'm not going to put two members of the band in here. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like Danzig is very interesting, and I listen to him a bunch, but it's not. He annoys me. I'm trying to think of a better way of saying that he just bothers me sometimes.
No,
like,
he's kind of obnoxious, right? It's just kind of that thing.
There's a pretension there, I think. You know, like I don't, and it's fine. He's probably supposed to have that. You know,
right?
Like,
and it goes back to my like distaste for that type of frontman.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I 100% understand.
Yeah, I think if Rob Zombie's offering you a ticket, he's not trying to sell you on it, but he's not going to not do it. Danzig's going to spit in your face and be like, "Why are you here? I guess I'll sing for you." You know, like I just
which is like, all right, screw you, man. Like,
yeah,
come on.
I don't know. I
With
don't
Rob
know why
Zombie,
I have
it's
that
like,
feeling about him.
I wonder what weird creepy
what are you gonna
sideshow
do?
am I in for?
Yeah, exactly.
So no, makes sense. Right call, definitely right call.
Yeah. What about you?
So,
Did you have any?
So not really that were terribly like difficult. The other drummer that I was considering is, and of course now that it's not like on my list, I'm going to have to double back and look up the name because I completely forgot. John Stanier from he's currently and has been since its inception the drummer for Battles. Was if not the initial, then one of the early drummers for Helmet. And he was also in Tomahawk which I'm not sure how familiar you are with
I'm not.
the supergroup Tomahawk, but they Tomahawk is Mike Patton, Dwayne Dennison from the Jesus Lizard, and the bass player from the Melvins.
Oh man.
So
I feel
yeah,
like Melvins could have gotten in the mix here. I feel like Mike Patton could have gotten even in the mix here in some spaces too.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, Mike Patton could have definitely been there. He didn't come to my mind, but he definitely is hard to. I guess it's not hard to build a band around Mike Patton, but Mike Patton is the act at that point, kind of, I feel like.
Well, I think he birthed a lot of this. I mean, I know that we're talking Deftones, we're talking Slipknot, like all of those bands like were inspired by what he did.
Of course.
Like, yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, that was my like other drummer that I was going back and forth with. And while he's very much like very, very strong drummer and very much in the same way keeps that tempo no matter what wildness is going on, especially in a band like Battles that's just like loops layered on top of other loops interweaving with another layer of loops. Like that takes a really, really strong, solid, like if you're playing drums to weird sampled loops, that's like a very, very strong drummer. So didn't end up going with him in the end, but he was my, like, I was going back and forth for my drummer. But that's it.
Cool.
We built some spooky bands.
Yeah, we built bands.
And we didn't include Alice Cooper. But I love Alice Cooper.
I feel like Alice Cooper, maybe our bands are opening up and he's headlining. Like I
there
feel
you
like
go.
Maybe we just give him that. Be like, okay, we'll all Alice Cooper's so rad, and he plays golf, and
heck yeah,
he's such a showman, and he's the reason why he's like 3 degrees of separation from most of what we're talking about here. Anyway,
exactly,
you know?
Yeah,
like,
if that, 100%.
Yeah.
So goodness gracious, I did not think that I would ever have this much fun with a Halloween or spooky themed episode, but we did it. Another thing that I just thought about, the playlist for this episode is going to absolutely shred.
Like, oh my God.
This is going to be a dope playlist.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts.
So watch out for that. We would love to hear your Build-A-Band, your Spooky Dookie Build-A-Band. Yeah. So hit us up on Twitter. We would love to hear from you and what your spooky band consists of. You don't have to play by our rules. You could bring some zombies back and bring on some artists that have passed on. Yeah. But you can talk about your list and tag us at retrogroove_pod on Twitter, or come visit us in the Retrologic Discord in the Retro Groove channel. And we would love to hear what your spooky Build-A-Band turns out to be. I'm sure there'll be some fun additions out there that were like, oh, I should have thought of that. Like I don't know how Mike Patton didn't even cross my mind. That was a missed opportunity there.
Yeah.
But can't go wrong with Shirley Manson.
No.
And you can't go wrong with Rob Zombie either.
Someone's going to bring in like Gwen Stefani, and I'm going to be like, what are you talking about? And then they're going to pitch it in a way where I'm like, okay, it's Gwen Stefani.
No.
We'll see.
I mean, they can try, but I don't think so.
No, probably not. No.
Now, I don't think that Rob Zombie and Shirley Manson would work very well together.
No.
At least not like, sonically.
Dude, I mean, Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson didn't work well together. They went on tour with like as a co-headliner, and they wound up almost killing each other. They almost got into a fist fight. They ultimately rectified it and went back on tour again a few years later, and they're fine now. But like Rob Zombie and Mansons don't go well together, actually. As we're talking about it. Yeah. So let's leave it.
Hopefully, it would go better than that. Yeah. But that tension, you never know.
You never know.
Maybe she could be in a Rob Zombie movie.
That would be rad.
That could work.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was fun.
Yeah.
So thank
Heck
you,
yeah.
listener, for listening to Spooky Groove. We're part of the Retrologic family of spooky podcasts. You can find us on Discord, as we just mentioned, on the Retrologic Discord server, and find us on Twitter at retrogroove_pod. And have a safe and happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah. Check your apples and
Check your apples for razor blades, and apparently, like I had a family member text me something like someone's putting fentanyl in some like candy wrappers or something like that, and I'm just like, oh my goodness gracious, please.
It'll be all right.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Stay safe.
Later.